Okay, let's talk about imagining the text as an approach to Scripture. Now, this one is actually a lot of fun. It's not real intellectually challenging, but it serves to bring text alive to us a little bit more. In fact, that's kind of the purpose behind it, is to get us to make the text come alive. Sometimes, especially something that we've read multiple times, we tend to go through the motions. It becomes repetitive, it becomes something that we're familiar with, and it becomes something that our minds begin to wander on a little bit. We have a hard time focusing on it. And using our imagination to inhabit the text actually is a way of countering that and getting us to see it from a fresh perspective. And it's one of the biggest benefits of imagining the text. So its purpose really is to combat that tendency to treat Scripture as something dry and dusty. Its purpose is to make it come alive, to make it recapture our imagination, to get us to inhabit and internalize the text a little bit more. So the way we do it is this. We pick a passage that we're going to read, and this works, by the way, very well with narrative passages, which comprise about 80% of Scripture. It doesn't work quite as well with some of the more didactic or teaching passages of Scripture. But the way we'll do it is this. As we read the text, we imagine ourselves as a participant or an observer in the text. And the more detail we put into our imagination, the better. Let me give you an example. In John 21, Jesus is on the shore of the Sea of Galilee. And he's talking with Peter, and they're cooking coal or cooking fish on the fire. And so, if I'm imagining that scenario, if I'm imagining that text as I'm reading it, I'm going to just pause for a minute, and I'm going to try to visualize the scene. Jesus and his disciples along the Sea of Galilee, Jesus sitting in front or kneeling in front of a fire, moving fish around in the coals, hearing the sound of the seagulls, the lapping of the waves, smelling the salt air, smelling the fish as it's cooking. And I'm going to try to imagine the scene and then imagine the contents of the scene as Jesus begins to talk with Peter. And I will imagine myself as a bystander there, listening to the conversation, looking at the expressions on Jesus' face as he says time after time, Peter, do you love me? Seeing the frustration in Peter's face the third time as he says, Lord, you know I love you, not in the way you're talking about, not in the way you're asking, but you know what I have to give and that I'm willing to give it. And in that, the story becomes more alive to me. It becomes more real to me. Another thing we can do sometimes is we can imagine ourselves as a participant in the story. Let's take the same scenario, the same passage, John 21. And this time, I'll cast myself in the position of Peter. And I'm out on the boat and I see Jesus on the shore, and I think, what would Peter be thinking? What would Peter be feeling here? He's gone out fishing because his entire world has come crashing down. And I'll try to get into that mindset and walk through the text, imagining myself saying what Peter is saying, hearing what Peter is hearing, feeling what Peter is feeling. And in that way, it becomes much more alive and dynamic to me. So that's the idea behind using our imagination, imagining the text as an approach to Scripture. A couple of passages that would be good. In fact, let me just give you one. Fairly lengthy passage. The story of Joseph would be a good one to practice with. It's the bulk of it you're going to find in Genesis 37 through 47. And again, you can take the whole thing at one shot. You can break it up into multiple pieces. You can do it a chapter at a time, whichever works best for you. But as you go through, try to imagine yourself as different characters or as a bystander in the story. In fact, using this technique, you can read the same story repeatedly and every time imagine yourself as a different character in the story and gain a different perspective on it. And so it's a really great way of inhabiting and internalizing the story of God. So that's imagining the text. I hope you enjoy it.